Hello everyone, Georgia Ramblin' Man here. Hope everybody's doing great on this Sunday morning, July the 23rd. It's been 2 weeks since I rode home from the Hootenanny, and this is the first time I have been out on my bike. I had to leave the Hootenanny a little bit early because I had a conference I had to go to down in Orlando, Florida on that Sunday 2 weeks ago. I made it home just fine and got packed and went on to Florida, and it was a good trip. And I came home and my wife and I turned around and took off back to Orlando the next week for yet another conference. A little bit unusual that I had two in a row in Orlando, but that's the way it turned out. And we had a really good time. We had hoped to get on down to Fort Lauderdale for a day or two and visit some friends of mine down there, but unfortunately they had to cancel. So when the trip was, or when the conference was over in Orlando, we just decided to drive back. I had to be in Houston, Texas last Friday all day for a deposition in a legal matter that our company is involved in with a construction project that did not go well out in Houston, and is, I guess, on many things, when things don't go well in today's society, people just tend to sue everybody. And that's what's happened on this particular project. The owner suing the contractor suing everybody. And we were named in this lawsuit. So on the advice of my attorney, I'm not going to speak about the details of the lawsuit. However, I'm not happy about it. It's costing us a lot of money. Attorneys are not cheap, I should say, as I'm sure Happy Jack will tell you. And I had to travel to Houston on Friday. Deposition started at 10 o'clock in the morning in downtown Houston. And I just didn't want to fly the night before, so I got a 6:30 a.m. flight out of Atlanta to Houston. Got to Houston about between 7:30 and 8 o'clock Central Time. Took a cab downtown, had a little breakfast with my lawyer, and then proceeded to go to a conference room in this law office downtown Houston, where about 28 lawyers were sitting around this huge conference table in a square type formation in this conference room, and had to give my deposition on this case to like 20 different lawyers. Every different party in the case has their own attorney, and they all tend to ask the same questions. But it was myself and another guy that I worked with that worked on the project, and it was excruciating. It was all day. Basically, we had a 8 o'clock flight from Houston back to Atlanta. My guy that works for me lives down in South Florida, so he had to head back to Miami. But we told everybody, hey, we got 8 o'clock flights, we'd like to wrap this up, and they did. Had a cab waiting for us, but it was after midnight before I got home. I got up at like 4 a.m. to make this 6:30 flight, and that was a long day, I'm gonna tell you. Long day. So I've been busy at work. Hadn't had a lot of time to ride, really. But today I do, and I am out. I told you before, I really like riding on Sunday mornings. Traffic is usually not too bad. It's kind of my time to myself, and I'm using this morning to kind of unwind a little bit from the last couple of weeks. It's July in Georgia, so it's going to be hot and steamy, and it is. But if you get out in the mornings, early like it is now, it's about 8:30. Temperature's not too bad, you know, it's kind of humid out here. But it's in the 80s. Sunny, no clouds in the sky. And most likely any rain or storms we get will be later in the day after it's heated up. And so this is really not a bad time to ride. I've actually even got my jacket on, even broke out my high-vis gear here. I've really been riding my motorcycle a lot more this year than I have in the past, and you know, I think a lot of that's due to the motor vlogging. I just enjoy looking at everybody else's motor vlogs, enjoy doing them myself. Gives me a reason to get out and take off. So I got my high-vis gear on, and I've just noticed as I've ridden my motorcycle more and more, there are a lot of times when people just don't see you. You know, my ride home from the Hoot, older gentleman in my neighborhood almost backed out into me as I was, you know, in my neighborhood, almost home. I was going really slow. He was backing out really slow, and he eventually did see me and stop. But you know, I've kind of decided to wear this high visibility gear more and more. I have a black bike, a black helmet. You know, I don't have a high visibility helmet. I kind of wish maybe I'd have bought one of those Day-Glo yellow helmets when I bought this one, but I like this helmet a lot. So anyway, I decided to break it out, and I've got it on now, and it just depends on how long I stay out riding today and how hot it gets, whether I'll keep it on. You know, I really do try to wear all the gear all the time, as they say, and always prepare for, you know, an accident and maybe sliding across the asphalt. But I have to admit, there's some days in the summer down here when it's just so hot, these jackets are kind of brutal. So anyway, I'm going to point my bike down the road. Don't know really where I'm going, but I will check in with you guys in a little while, let you know where I'm at. Going to give a few of my final thoughts on the Hootenanny. I really enjoyed watching everybody's videos. Been really great to watch. Everybody's got their own style. Everybody does their own thing. Have different camera angles and camera mounts, and it's really great to watch all of them. I was watching a video that NC Stody put up last night, or a day or two ago, where he was kind of asking everybody if they enjoy where they lived. He mentioned one of the things he really liked about living in a small town in North Carolina was that he could get out in the country really quick. And I enjoy the same things about where I live. As you can see, I am in the country, and there are a lot of goats out there. No, those are cows, I'm sorry. Sorry about that Bronco ride, just had to get that little dig in there. But I love riding out in the country here. I obviously live in a little larger town than Stoney does. He lives in the outside of Greensboro, North Carolina, and I forget the name of the little town. I think it's Archdale. And I live outside of Atlanta, which is a huge city, at least in my opinion. But I'm out in the suburbs. You know, I'm a good ways out in the north of the city, and it's very easy for me to get out in these country roads pretty quickly myself. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about where I live, along with the milder weather. You know, it's not Florida or Southern California mild, but you know, we have 4 seasons. And really, I would say there's not really any season that you're guaranteed not to be able to ride. Yeah, sure, in January and February, there's probably some days that are just too cold. We don't get a lot of snow in Atlanta, but we do get some. In the summertime, it can be really warm. Like it's some, you know, July 23rd right now. I mean, this is as hot as it's going to get, really. And the good thing about the summers is, like I mentioned before, if you get out early enough, it's not too bad. You know, I'm out this morning, it's in the 80s, kind of humid, got my jacket on, and as long as I'm moving, you know, I'm pretty comfortable. So I like that. I like that about where I live. You know, I've had the chance to live in a number of places around this country. My dad was in the military, and we moved around. After I got out of college, I lived in the Midwest for a while in St. Louis, Missouri. Then I lived out in California for a while before I finally settled back into Georgia. And I think for most people, where you live is really not so much, you know, dependent upon geography or weather or anything like that. It's kind of where you're from, where your family is. You know, I think people are a lot more important than anything else. Your family. And if your family's in a certain part of the country, you know, that's where you probably want to live. My wife's family, they're all from New England. And it was really great to meet the guys from New England at the Hoot. Freedom Rider and Riding Country, Happy Jack. It was good to meet those guys. And I think everybody pretty much loves where they live. You know, whenever you take a vacation and you go someplace really nice, you think, whoa, this would be a great place to live. You know, but when it comes down to it, you've got a family, you've got a job, you know, you have roots. And that's probably where you want to live. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth on that. Like I say, I really enjoyed watching all the Hootenanny videos from everyone. I really liked the one yesterday that I looked at from Bronco Ride. I really like his drone footage that he took of the Mountaineer Inn at the very beginning. You know, I got a little small drone. It's not hardly the size of my hand, and it's really hard to control. And I've never even hooked up a camera to it, so I'd like to get a larger one though. Maybe experiment with that a little bit. A lot of the construction projects I go on, the contractors will fly drones over the project and kind of make progress videos of the job from a bird's eye view of a drone, and those are really cool. So I really enjoyed that part of his video, and I like the camera placement on the Bronco Ride has. I think he's got one on his helmet, one on the highway bars on his bike, and you get really good view. But I've just enjoyed watching all of them. Tex Riders, Freedom Riders, McKaylee 7, Harley Treks, everybody's videos are just really good. It's always kind of cool to see somebody else's video and you see yourself in the video. That's also kind of cool. Kind of in conclusion, I don't want to ramble on too much here today. This vlog, I know, doesn't have any specific topic. I'm kind of rambling about a lot of different things. But just a few of my final thoughts on the Hootenanny. My first one, I thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, since I've been back into riding motorcycles, I've pretty much, for the most part, ridden by myself. And I'm okay with that. I like that. I like out riding by myself and the solitude of being out on two wheels and being able to leave the world behind a little bit. But I tell you, riding with all you guys up in North Carolina a couple of weekends ago was just a total blast for me. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. So, as I've mentioned on a couple of my videos, it's definitely going to be a annual thing for me. And I appreciate Bronco Ride and Harley Trek and McKaylee 7 doing all the planning. And, you know, my hope as we go through these Hootenannies in the coming years is that we move it around a little bit. I mean, I like having it in the North Carolina mountains. I mean, you're not going to find any better riding roads, that's for sure. It'd be nice to kind of move it around a little bit. You know, I told my wife when I got back on Sunday, she said, wow, you're back early. I mean, I got back about noon. And I said, yeah, you know, Robbinsville is really not that far from where we live. It's like 130 miles. And I was home in a jiffy. Now, I've never really taken any really long road trips on this motorcycle. You know, this motorcycle is a little smaller. It's not the big touring rig. I was a little concerned about how it would do in a long trip. But I tell you, after being on the Hootenanny, this bike is super comfortable. know, I've got enough room in the bags and a little tail bag that I've got to pack what I need for a few days. I pack kind of light anyway. And it's really comfortable. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and looking at some of the videos of you guys and your trips back to home, up to Canada, back up to the Northeast, all these different places you guys went, I thought, man, I wouldn't mind making a longer road trip. It might be kind of cool to head up to the Northeast or a little farther west someplace. I don't know, just me. Obviously it'd take a little more time, but once we get the date set for the Hootenanny next year, I'm blocking those out on my calendar and going to try to avoid the situation I had this year where I had this conference scheduled. I'm not sure I would have been able to change that anyway, but you know, just from, you know, vacation standpoint, you know, taking a week for this Hootenanny and riding someplace and then being able to ride with all you guys, I think that would be just a great thing. I know it's, you know, summertime's a good time to do it. People are off and vacations are easier to come by. You know, McKaylee 7 and Harley Trek both work in the school systems, so I'm sure the summers are easier for them. And I'm okay with that, really. You know, I'm kind of used to the heat and humidity down here in the southeast, so it really didn't bother me. You know, I guess the only thing that does crop up once in a while is those thunderstorms, and that happened to us there in Maggie Valley, but you know, you just wait it out and it usually clears and off you go. But I'm up for really going anywhere. And I'm really up for doing it any other time of the year you wanted to. Spring, fall, summer, I'm okay. Just get it on my calendar. Alright guys, that's about all from me for today. Again, thanks to everyone for the Hootenanny. It was great fun. Looking forward to it next year. Keep those videos coming. I really enjoy watching them. Got a busy week coming up, and in the words of the great Willie Nelson, I will be on the road again this week. So take care, everybody. Everybody ride safe. Have a great week.